The Suros Regime has returned, and the weapon's really close to me. It was actually the first ever review I made for Destiny. You could tap the trigger and make it shoot a little bit faster when in focus fire, and that video really started my channel. But the Suros Regime has arguably gone through some of the most change in Destiny's history. When it came out in vanilla Destiny 1, it was feared, huge damage, easy to use, PvP players were looking for it, PvE players liked it a lot, it had high caliber rounds, you can get your health back after a kill, and then solely due to the Suros Regime, all auto rifles got nerfed. It was a learning experience for Bungie with overall balance. We had a damage change, then they added the spinning up perk, it got a little bit of a buff, and then we had the black Suros, now we have the blue Suros. So how does it fit in Destiny 2? For the perks, we have the Suros Legacy perk. The bottom half of each magazine deals bonus damage and has a chance to return health on a kill. Hammerforged Rifling, increased range. Tactical Mag increases magazine reload and stability. And then we have the option of spinning up, holding down the trigger increases the rate of fire, or Dual Speed Receiver. When aiming down sights, a weapon's rate of fire slows and the weapon damage increases. And then we have hand laid stock, increases stability. But before we go any further, let's talk about spinning up and dual speed receiver. In both PvE and PvP, it gets very, very interesting. A lot of things start changing, because essentially we have 3 different weapons here, and why the review takes a bit of time. Now at its base, the Suros Regime is a 600 RPM auto rifle. As it speeds up, it appears to turn into a 720 RPM auto rifle, like the foregone conclusion that we just went over. It actually seems to go a little bit faster, like a 760, 770 RPM, but the main difference is that when you're spinning up, the Suros holds the damage of a 600 RPM archetype. As you hold the fire button down, it starts ramping up and amping up, and halfway it really starts kicking in, and at the same time, so does the bonus damage in the bottom half of the magazine. When you put on dual speed, it turns into a 360 rate of fire AR, like the Halfdan D. And when you start using dual speed, the damage starts mirroring the 360 RPM archetype, and the very first thing I checked is if you could tap the trigger and make it fire like a scout rifle to make it fire a little bit faster like in Destiny 1, but oversampling is enabled on it, you can't do that. And when we get into these base stats, remember it's a 600 RPM base AR. It has very high base stats in a few categories for the archetype. It has a range of 50, stability of 49, reload of 67, handling of 68, aim assist of 68, recoil direction of 50, and a magazine of 36. Now as far as recoil direction, counterbalance mods help tremendously. The poor recoil direction stat of 50 makes it move up and to the left a little bit and then kind of all over the place. Now when you add one counterbalance mod, it really helps out, but when you add 2, it really makes a difference, especially when using it in PvP. The Suros Regime perk, Suros Legacy, has a chance to proc to get your health regen going after a kill. Now, it seems like when you need it, it's not there, and when you don't need it, it procs. And as always, with perks like this, you never really rely on them, but it's always nice when they come through. It starts health regen. You don't get immediate health, but starting regen is really nice. Now, since the start of Destiny 2, ARs have been really good at boss encounters, and it seems like there's always something a little special you can do with the Suros Regime, as you saw in the opening clip. When paired with a barricade, once you drop and crouch, and at the end of the magazine, you're going to keep that rate of fire and get to the bottom half even quicker. It brings some very, very interesting outcomes. You can blow through your kinetic reserves very quickly doing this, but you're keeping that damage of the 600 RPM archetype. I of course do play a good deal of PvE, but don't really get into those kinds of damage numbers. I don't really have the crew for that, if that makes sense, and I would be really interested to see what Rick Kakis data would have to say as far as damage in a high level encounter doing this with multiple Guardians. Regardless, it's a really fun thing to do, and yeah, you can do it in PvP as well. The Suros Regime does its job decently in PvE, but with the resurgence of Graviton Lance, Sunshot, and even Crimson, it's tough to justify the Suros' niche aspects. Lance has an incredible amount of mob control, same with the Sunshot. The Crimson heals you after every kill, not just a chance at it, and with the Precision Final Blow, the magazine goes on and on and on. And just those 3, not to mention the Sleeper Sim, Tractor Cannon, Darcy, Risk Runner, the more you name, the more the Suros looks less appealing. That's not to say you can't go out and have a good time with the Suros Regime. I would say it relates to the Mida multi-tool. In every aspect of the game, it's good at just about everything, but it's great at nothing, if that makes sense. There were so many times I was getting footage for Suros in an escalation protocol and strikes, and all I could think was, I wish I had my Lance for these mobs, or I wish I had the Sleeper Sim for this boss fight. It happened so much, I just switched a lot. The only thing really going for it is that spinning up keeping damage of a 600 RPM auto rifle. That's really the exoticness of Suros Regime, and it's really good, but then you have to deal with the reload, which I'm not really a fan of. I found myself using reload mods on gear, using the Ophidians on a Warlock, which I do anyway. The Rig Titans with the Barricade can have a really good time with it though. It has a great inherent reload, but with what you want to do with the weapon, it starts really weighing on the experience. And in the grand scheme of things, in PvE, the weapon's very pedestrian. Exotic perks truly define weapons in Destiny 2, and it makes the Suros very mediocre. A greater magazine, max reload speed when the mag is empty, something to get this weapon grooving a little bit faster is what's needed. And most of the time, you can just pair a duty bound, an AR with Rampage, an AR with Kill Clip, an AR with Dragonfly, pair that with a Lance or Sleeper, and you and your fire team are going to be way better off. In PvP, it's not even close between spinning up and dual speed receiver. Spinning up is going to be the winner. Both of them have drastic differences in how you want to use them, and with spinning up, especially when you're halfway through that magazine, both perks activate, getting you more damage, the amped up RPMs. That's when it really starts to shine, and this version of the Suros is going to be the best for the Crucible. But I can see players not wanting to be aggressive with that. That's where the dual speed receiver option comes in. Again, 2 counterbalance mods work on this really well because once you're in that final 15 or so bullets, they start lasering. At least one CB mod makes a world of difference, but 2 of the mods makes it very vertical. And when using spinning up, it does give you a better time to kill. Remember, you're keeping the damage of a 600 RPM AR, but shooting it like a fast firing one. The spinning up version duels really well within range against other weapons, and PC players are probably going to get the most out of this weapon. And actually down in the comment section, let me know what you guys think about it on PC. With spinning up, it does 17 to the head and 13 to the body. The TTK is skewed. The base TTK for a 600 RPM and 9 resilience is 1.10 seconds. Most Guardians are less than that. It's going to be a little bit quicker than that. And when the Suros Legacy perk was spinning up, it's around 0.9 seconds, 0.85, 0.87, sub 1. That's really the important thing. And it gets a tad faster when the enemy's resilience is low. And for that to work, you need to get those RPMs up. A lot of times I found myself pre-firing once I turned a corner, that way I can ramp up those RPMs. But when you do that, you're gonna have to pretty much reload after every engagement. And that's a risk versus reward mindset, but it's very effective. With dual speed receiver, it does 25 to the head and 20 to the body at 360 rounds per minute. One of the true differences between spinning up and dual speed receiver is going to be range. And first off, in my testing, spinning up has a maximum effective range of 27 meters and dual speed receiver is 29 meters. That isn't very far, and this AR has severe damage drop off. You're going to lose gunfights at mid to long range with the Suros. It's very, very steep. Now the sweet spot is going to be just outside of SMG range up to about 25 meters, because once outside of that, the accuracy damage drop off becomes a real issue. But on the flip side, you can use dual speed receiver, because at 30, 33 meters and beyond, you're still going to be holding that 22 critical damage. It's a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more controllable at that distance. But here's the deal. You haven't seen too much dual speed gameplay in the background. There's a reason for that. We're going to take the half Dan. At 360 RPM AR, it does the same damage as a Suros, 25 to the critical. Now the half Dan has 32 more range. You heard correctly, 32 more range. The half Dan has Outlaw on it with a range stat of 82. So comparatively, the Suros has much less range, a mediocre glass half full, and a chance to get your health back after a kill. And just to be clear, to put dual speed receiver into perspective even more, the Masterwork Crimson has an effective range of 34 meters, doing max damage, and after every single kill, you get your health back. There's so much wrong with how the Suros works in this setup for PvP and PvE for that matter. It has some real issues, and for that reason, if you want to use a 360 RPM AR, just use another one instead. Because it would be different if we were doing 28-29 to the critical, something to give it a little bit push to use. If they had a little bit more range when you equipped it, maybe a catalyst can help alleviate some of the hardships of the Suros Regime, I don't know. But for most of this review, I've been putting down the Suros Regime, because I don't really feel that there's going to be a need to hype it. From what I've tested, compared, time tested, I think other weapons are going to be more worthy of your exotic slot. With that perk, dual speed receiver, I don't recommend putting that on at all, because in conclusion, I think the weapon would have been top tier before this sandbox update. But there are just so many good options right now. The Suros is nowhere near its original form back in D1, but then again, it's nowhere near where we left it in D1, if that makes sense. It's right there in the middle. I will say this as a positive. In PvP, it owns in that close range to about 25 meters. That's its bread and butter. If you can game plan around getting into your engagements up close to 25 meters, you're gonna have better games with it. That's where the Suros can get the job done, because when you work with that spinning up perk properly, you can and will have good games in PvP, because that desired kill time is gonna be sub 1 second. That's what you're looking for, and the Suros can hit that. Now in PvE, you can do some cool things like we talked about with the Titan's Barricade. There's going to be players out there that are really in love with the weapon, and the review is to show you the ins and outs of it, what it's doing, where it does and does not excel. In most weapons and gear in Destiny 2, the fun factor and player playstyle is a huge factor in overall use. Personally for me, it's a fun weapon. It brings me back, but I would not use my exotic spot on it. I will say it feels the best in the 600 RPM class, but I would still feel better in various encounters using other exotics. The Suros needs some work, in my opinion. It needs a true exotic treatment that can be done in a sandbox update or a catalyst. So let me know in the comment section your thoughts on the Suros Regime in Destiny 2. Please remember to rate the video. Thank you guys for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.